Hi everyone, Rachel from Jacksonville Property here, and today I am with Matt. Matt, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Thanks, Rachel. Matthew Tranter. I'm the principal of Tranter Lawyers in Maitland. I call myself the head coach, and at the moment, I'm also chief lemonade maker. Life gives us lemons sometimes, so all you can do is make lemonade. So in these challenging times, so no, it's going well.
Wonderful. And how long have you been in business?
The firm started back in 2000. It was straight after the birth of our first child.
Wonderful.
And came to the realization of, well, okay, if we're going to do something, we might as well do it now. And so our building became available, and it was one of those decisions of, look, it's going to be a risk, but it's a risk that we're prepared to take. And it was great. I've been working in Maitland for 7 years before that in another legal practice, and it wasn't quite perhaps being run the way that I was sort of like wanted it to be run. And I always remember back when I was studying commerce at Newcastle University, I used to work for a chiropractor, and he had a very small practice, but I loved how he ran that business. And so that's where I get a lot of my ideas from, is going, well, the principles and values were coming from that small practice. And thought, well, I might as well do it for my own sake, and just with the family starting and the quality of life, etc.
Yep.
And so now we've got 18 employees, and
Wow.
we have seven solicitors, and yeah, all works really, really well.
Wonderful. And 20 years later, still going on.
Still going on, still having challenges, still having fun. I'm very, very fortunate. I've got a great team behind us, and sometimes you get the team you deserve too. So we're very much focused on culture, making sure people are being looked after, putting the people first. Because if you look after the team, they look after the clients, and we're really, really fortunate to have some really good clients that we look after.
Wonderful. Now, one of the things you focus in is estate planning and wills and such. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. With estate planning, we are really, really passionate about. It's one of those things where everyone thinks, people know that we do wills, and we used to just rely on clients to ask us. And then there was a few situations that occurred. First, I lost my mother-in-law. She went to have a angiogram. Her son was told that she needed to have bypass surgery. She went in that afternoon and didn't come out of surgery. We had other clients that one of my wife's best friends, her husband was 38 years old, died of a heart attack. And all of a sudden it started to hit home. And then we had another client that we'd done work for, prepared wills, and 6 months later she died of cancer. And we looked at all those situations, and the one that had died of cancer had 2 young kids. My wife's friend had 2 young kids, and we compared their 2 situations financially going forward because of the estate planning side of things, and there was a massive difference between the 2. And that's where we changed and went, you know what, our role is to help as many people as we can. We try to make sure that clients are aware, because there are so many options these days when it comes to estate planning. When you go through university, it's an optional subject. It's one where they only teach you the basics. And that's how I used to do wills. And in 2004, I went to a seminar and came out of that seminar going, holy hell, we have to change the way we do things. There are so many options that are available for clients, whether it be asset protection or tax, etc. And I want the clients to have those options. And our role is really just to educate, show people what those options are, how they operate. A 95-year-old pensioner that has $50,000 in a bank account has a different sort of will to a couple that's got $10 million worth of assets, 3 children, one of which has got special needs. So it's really about trying to customize a person's situation depending on the circumstances. And their situation might be simple, but their beneficiaries may not be simple. That 95-year-old pensioner that had 50,000, she actually ended up having a more complex will because she only had one son, and her son had just gone bankrupt, and that changed everything. All of a sudden, it was one where, what can I do to protect that $50,000 for my son? She didn't want it going to the government. And so from that perspective, over 91% of the wills that we look at for people are either out of date, have errors, or don't have all the options. And probably from your client's perspective, one of the really ones that we've seen is, as an example, there was an 85-year-old widow who passed away. He had 4 adult children, and they all had children themselves. When he passed away, he had about $1.25 million worth of assets.
Mm-hmm.
He had a house, which was about half of that. He had one investment property, and he had $100,000 worth of shares. Now, the 4 children didn't want any of the assets per se, so the assets were to be sold. But if the estate sold the investment property and the $100,000 worth of shares, there's going to be capital gains tax payable, which worked out to be about $100,000. However, because the will had some specific options in relation to testamentary trusts, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
they were able to transfer investment property and the shares into those 4 testamentary trusts. With the capital gain that came through, they were then able to distribute that to their particular children, being the deceased grandchildren. Because each of them had children themselves, the capital gains tax, instead of being $100,000, ended up being less than $5,000. Wow. There was a huge difference between the two. And obviously with that money, that ends up going to the hands of the beneficiaries.
Yes.
That's some of the options that are available now for people. And most people aren't aware of it. When we go through this process with clients and we tell them about these options, etc., so many of them go, absolutely, we want to have that. Now, it's not for everybody, but again, we look at the circumstances, and our role is just to educate, showing, well, certain assets form part of your estate, some may not. Work out what they're trying to achieve, what's their fears. And the greatest fear is obviously the wealth that they've created going outside the family. And there are certain circumstances that may worried about people contesting estates and things like that. If they're in business, asset protection. So there's a whole range of things that we look at, to make sure that we go, okay, based on your set of circumstances, these are the options, and this is the cost of those options. This is how it would all work. You tell us what you would like. And so since 2004, we've done a whole range of different education and learning ourselves, because things do change, to try and make sure that we give the most options, the most value to clients.
So the most important thing, I guess, to take from that is if you have a will, make sure you get it updated regularly, and have it checked.
Oh, look, yeah, you'd certainly need to have a look at it. I mean, I've written off 2 cars in my lifetime. Both times the car was not moving. It was stationary. I just have this gift, unfortunately. Unless you know when you're going to pass away, then it really is important to have those estate planning documents done up. The will is operate when you pass away. The 2 other documents, which to me are just as important, power of attorney and enduring guardianship. And the power of attorney means that if potentially you're incapacitated, who makes financial decisions for you? The guardianship, if you're incapacitated, who makes health decisions for you? So just like you don't know when you're going to pass away, you don't know when something may happen. You're involved in a car accident and you're incapacitated. So it is looking at all those different things in regards to estate planning, not just when you pass away, but how do things operate if you're incapacitated or not in the area and things like that.
Someone else can help out. So one of the other things, obviously we do property management, but we don't look after commercial tenancies. So is this something you also look after?
Absolutely. The thing with commercial tenancies is it's not like a residential type situation where there is usually one standard agreement. Commercial tenancies, you can have a range of different types of agreements. If something goes wrong, then the parties are going back to that lease documentation. There are some leases which are more pro-tenant. There are some leases which are more pro-landlord. So it's important to make sure that you're covered for these situations and make sure that the leases, especially from a landlord perspective, cover all the things that you need to. There are some leases that are very, very light on. And if something happens and it's not covered by that lease, where do the parties stand? Okay. Even now with COVID-19, there are different rules in place at the moment, especially with the commercial tenancy code. How do you negotiate? What information do you require? And things like that. And all of a sudden, new leases, do we need to have special conditions in there in relation to the commercial tenancy code? And when does it apply? When doesn't it apply? So yeah, just like anything, how important that document is extremely important, especially if something goes wrong, because that's where the parties look to for the answers.
And I guess being an expert negotiator yourself, you'll be working overtime on those commercial tenancies at the moment.
We have a team behind us who are doing plenty of hours and trying to keep up to date with all the changes, because even with New South Wales, the commercial tenancy regulations, I think, were only passed last Wednesday.
Yes.
So the world is changing at a fast pace. The legislators are bringing in so much legislation at the moment, and often the government is passing the framework, but then leaving it to other departments to put the meat behind it.
Yes, so, they're just saying, here are the rules.
Sometimes it takes, yep, exactly right.
So one of the other main areas, I guess, is your conveyancing section. That you look after purchases of properties and sales of properties. So tell us a bit about how that works with you.
Yeah, look, with buying a property, it's really important, obviously, to get the right advice. It's one of the major decisions that people are going to go make in their lifetime, just from the emotional perspective, let alone the financial aspect. We try and take the view that there is something wrong with every contract that we look at for a purchaser. If we don't find anything, fantastic. And we try and, again, educate our clients, because the more they know, the more they can help us in trying to find a problem. We go through diagrams, we go through the contract, etc., ask questions, because we need their help to try and find something, because they may tell us something that an agent had said or a vendor had said, and we go, well, okay, based on the contract, how does that relate? Is it in here? Is it something else that we need to do? Is it part of our due diligence process? What I often see is that, especially when you're working on the other side, is what happens. And some people, unfortunately, think conveyancing is this paper shuffling exercise. You just have to dot the I's, cross the T's, fill in a form, and then you go. But with conveyancing, it's actually got the highest number of PI, professional indemnity claims, out of all the areas of law. And I think it comes back to the fact that people do think it's just a paper shuffling exercise. It's not. You're dealing with a lot of money, an investment from a family perspective, whether it be an investment property or their family home. It's important to get it right. And that's the thing. We want to make sure we look after and protect our clients as much as possible. And we don't send out the contract with a 7-page letter saying, here it is. If everything's all okay, send it back to us. We want to go, well, okay, we want to make sure our clients do understand what's going on in relation to the transaction. How does it all work? Because again, we need their help in telling us what they know about the property, so that we can try and protect them as much as possible.
No, I've definitely heard you tell some stories about saving some purchasers some money at the end of the day when you've gone through contracts. And
absolutely.
And that's what everyone loves to hear, saving money.
Yes.
Now, is there any other tips or things that you'd like to chat about this morning?
Oh, look, I think from our perspective is often a situation may occur and people want to look at a legal solution, but sometimes the legal solution isn't always the best solution. I'll give you an example. We once had an employer come to see us, and he had a staff member who had left to work for the opposition. And that employee started saying things about his employer that he perhaps shouldn't have been saying. Now, we did a letter to the former employee and just pointing out that, look, even though he has left, he still has certain obligations to his former employer. And that worked for a little while. Then, after a period of time, the former employee started saying some more things, etc. Employer came to see us and wanted to take the matter to court. By hell or high water, he was going. And we said, well, okay, what do you really want? It's not for the employee to stop saying anything. What we really want is to make sure your clients and customers don't leave you.
Yeah.
And whatever you're willing to spend on legal fees, and it better be at least 5 figures, because we're talking about the Supreme Court, spend it on your clients. Do something for them. Give them a special offer, a gift, whatever it may well be, because that way, whatever the employee says, they're not going to leave you anyway. And what's the worst case? You may actually get more business out of it. And the employer, our client said, look, fantastic, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, Obviously, from our perspective, we didn't make any money out of that, but it was the best solution to look after your clients and not take legal action. And the thing with litigation is that no one really wins, okay? You might have two parties that are up against each other, and one may not be as badly affected as the other, but no one really wins because of the emotional cost factor, etc. There are times where, yes, you are forced to go to court, especially if you're a defendant. But if you can look at, in business, look at what the best solution is, sometimes thinking outside the box, that's often a better solution than what a strict legal solution is.
No, most definitely. Well, thank you for the chat this morning, Matt. We really appreciate it. And we'll leave everyone with, if you need any advice or legal help, please contact Matt from Tranter Lawyers.
Terrific. Take care. Thanks, Rachel.